Yes. Okay. So we're going to talk to Matt Maxwell about his book, Queen of No Tomorrows.
Hiya.
And Matt's here and Emma Gibbon is here. But first, we're going to talk about America versus England, not expectations, I guess,
Okay.
and how they feel. But yeah, yellow school buses. I was just saying before we started recording.
Two things.
Yeah.
First of all, I may have watched License to Drive starring Corey Haim a lot when I was younger. I'm just saying that's a thing that I did. And a lot of the scenes are in the yellow buses, and it was incredibly exotic to us. Like either we didn't have a school bus, or it just looked like it was just a regular bus. So there's none of these like to us fancy yellow buses. And then I hear my husband's stories of being on the school buses in America, and it's not quite as glamorous as I imagined.
It isn't. No air conditioning.
Yeah, apparently there's a certain type of like black gunk I hear on school buses, like from all the like mud and stuff that's peculiar.
It was a very hard black plastic urethane foam that they had the big steel tubes that the seats were all made out of. It was covered with that black stuff, and I guess it would save you from bonking your head against solid steel in a collision, but it doesn't seem like any fun. And it never felt clean, no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. So the other thing, which same color yellow, is the fire hydrants.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I take my dogs out for a walk and one of them like pees on a hydrant, I'm like, wow, it's just like the movies.
I'm living in a movie.
My dog's so American.
There's a story. Douglas Adams was staying with a friend for a bit in America, and it was a street with it was a big street, so people could park by the curb on both sides of the road. Okay.
Yeah.
So he parked his car on the side of the road next to his friend's house, but it was facing the other way. And a cop knocked on the door that night. He's like, does anybody here own that car? And Douglas Adams is like, yeah, that's my car. Is there a problem? He goes, well, you need to turn it around. And he's like, huh? He goes, it's going against the flow of traffic. And Douglas Adams sticks his head out. It's like it at night, there's no cars. He's like, what traffic? So he just thought it was so weird that they all have to line up and face the same way in America. And
the roads and stuff are so small in Britain, and parking space. Like I never drove in Britain because I'm not good enough driver to drive in Britain. I can't. Yeah. So in Britain, because there's so little space, it's like the Wild West. You have to just like park wherever you can squeeze in. Like It doesn't matter which way you know.
I saw that in Rome, and I saw that a little bit in England, but or in London, but mostly taxis and buses, not too many passenger cars. And we were in the heart of London, so I imagine they're trying to do all sorts of things to limit traffic, from what I understand.
Yeah, most people don't drive in the cities. There's no point. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned it seemed glamorous to you in the movies. Well, I think it's sometimes a case of the grass is greener on the other side. Because, I've always felt, oh, wow, these buildings that are hundreds of years old and all this history and everything, that's just so neat. I'm so interested in that.
Yeah.
There's a short story that Neil Gaiman wrote called Murder Mysteries. Have you guys read that?
No.
Describe it to me. I might have.
It's about this guy. He's stuck in Los Angeles because there's a snowstorm somewhere else keeping him from getting back to England, to London. And so he's got to stay in his hotel another day. And a friend finds out he's in town, a female friend, old girlfriend, and he goes over there, and then he goes back, and he doesn't know what to do with himself. He doesn't want to go to sleep. He's just out walking. And this guy comes up to him and bums a cigarette and starts telling this story. So it's one of those story within a story.
Yeah. It's not ringing a bell, but it might.
Well, Neil Gaiman has written so many great stories that I think when I say that it's in my view his best story, that says a lot, because he's got so many great short stories.
I'll have to look that out.
Including some that are never going to get published or printed. officially like his Narnia story. Have you heard that?
I've
He used to
read
do
that.
it at midnight readings. Did it actually get printed?
Story, yeah, the Susan story got published.
Oh, okay.
About Susan?
No, this was the White Queen in Aslan.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I've never read that. I'd love to, though.
It's not going to get published.
Yeah, I think I've heard of it, but I haven't read it.
Yeah, he read it at a midnight benefit. We used to do those at Comic-Con. This was 20 years ago. I don't know if he still does them now or not.
Well, the reason why I brought up murder mysteries, and by the way, to the audience, if you haven't read this short story, you really should. And it's also available as an audio drama starring Brian Dennehy. I think it's on YouTube. I'm not sure. I only say that because I'm not sure you can buy it anymore. Otherwise, try that first. But anyway, so his girlfriend's friend picks him up to take him over there. And, he's saying, the guy is narrating, he's saying, Los Angeles is such a mystery to me. And the girl says to him, look at that building over there. Some of those buildings over there are over 50 years old. And, he lives in London, and he's like, I'm trying to comprehend a nation where 50 years old can be considered old. So
and then you have the East and the West in the US, and the East, 100 miles is a long way, but 100 years is not an old building. And in the West, 100 years is almost an unfathomably old building, and 100 miles is nothing. You do that in your sleep.
Yeah.
So it's funny because having just been in London, one thing I noticed was a lot of the new city seems like it really just wants to destroy the old city, just like chew it up and spit it out, or keep a little bit as a tourist preserve, and then get rid of the rest of it. It really, it feels like the old and the new are definitely at war with one another there.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've been here, but it's been over 10 years.
Okay. It's the financial center is, you're looking at the skyline. It's just like, low London skyline. And then all of a sudden it's like, there's the cathedral. And then there's just, the high rises and the financial center. And then you go to the other side and there's the South Bank, and there's the Shard and a bunch of other big office towers. And it's kind of unreal.
Yeah.
Well,
the Shard is like a building that shouldn't exist. It's pretty unbelievable. You should look it up.
Oh, well.
Because in the skyline, it's so out of scale with the rest of the skyline. It's not even funny.
That tall? Is a tall building that I'm thinking of?
It's a huge, tall building.
Yeah, I've seen it.
I believe it's 88 floors or 92 floors, something like that. Yeah. A flat starts at 40 million pounds. I mean, sure, why not?
Well, Emma mentioned, watching American movies, and it looked so glamorous and everything. I have that same feeling. One of my favorite shows is Whitechapel. I don't know if you guys have seen it.
Yeah, I have watched it. Yeah,
I love that series. You should check it out. Okay. And also, minor spoiler, but not really. It's 4 seasons long, and in the 4th season, some paranormal, supernatural stuff starts to creep in, which I really enjoyed. Anyway, I watch Whitechapel, and I'm like, oh man, look at all these old buildings. They're hundreds of years old and everything. But I didn't know I was doing even better with the yellow school buses. So
because we were like, when I was at school, they'd take us on school trips, and we're like, I'm going to another castle. So it is. It's definitely the other way around.
Yeah.
And
Well, we are here to talk to Matt about his book, Queen of No Tomorrows. So Emma Gibbon is with me, and of course, Matt Maxwell is with me. Hey, guys.
I am.
So now that we're done talking about England and the United States, maybe we should talk about your book. So,
okay, sure.
And Emma really loved it, so she wanted to be here when I interviewed you. So, so first of all, it was published twice. I'm forgetting some.
This is technically the second time it's been published. It was published by Broken Eye Books in 2018, and then I ended up parting ways with them, and the book reverted to me. So I'm putting it out with some edits that let's say when my editor and I disagreed on, and it needed another run through anyway. And I've added another novella to it called Dreams Are Made of Us. Or is it The Stars Are Made of Us?
Great. Well, I wanted to ask, because the Queen of No Tomorrows that's on Amazon, says December 12th, 2018. Is
there's one with the cover art by Gabriel Hardman. It's line art rather than a photo collage.
Oh, okay, right.
So let's see.
Book one of, okay, so all right, I get it. If you want to read the updated version with the other novella, which is available in Kindle as well, go to Amazon, type in The Queen of No Tomorrows, book one of Hazeland, Hazland.
The other one shouldn't be available anymore. It's supposed to be taken off completely. There might be old softcover editions of it floating around still as used, and I've seen some marked up already. So don't pay markup prices.
Yeah, it's just a paperback price. So, and the nice thing is, if you want to read it immediately, folks, after you listen to this,
which you do,
yeah, you can, and you're a Kindle person, it's only $6.99 on Kindle, which is a great price, I think.
I'm probably underpricing it, but
it's better from a promotional standpoint.
Yeah,
it is always better to sell more copies at a lower price than it is to sell less copies at a higher price.
Yeah, because the price point, the price point for you is the same, and Amazon's going to take the same cut either way. So,
well, the other thing is that you have more people reading the book and talking about the book and word of mouth and all that.
Yeah. So. And when the second book comes out, I'll probably reduce the price on the first. Just try and get people in, You can read the second book without having read the first. It'll certainly be a little easier if you read that first one, though.
When will the second book come out?
It'll be coming out in March next year. I don't know the exact date yet. Okay. Possibly April, but I'm shooting for March. I've actually been redoing the cover this week, and I need to start gathering readers and getting ARCs out and that sort of thing.
Well, which one of you wants to kind of give a spoiler-free synopsis of it? And I know you love the book too, Emma. So
I did, but I'm going to let Matt do it because it's his book. So
alrighty.
Yeah, go on.
I
can read the Amazon thing.
No, that's fine. I mean, I wrote that, and I'll probably try and riff on it. So it's set in an indeterminate period in the 80s in Los Angeles. Kate McCready is a ex-punk kid, ex-librarian, although that's still her day job, and book restorer, and working on being an ex-book forger, although she doesn't know that yet. She's made a lot of money selling counterfeits of old books and some legitimate copies through a male fence persona that she's created because it just was easier to deal with, Collectors of the Occult as having a fake male interlocutor than a real woman presence.
Sexist bastards.
Yeah, well,
it's the 80s, right?
Yeah. Well, it's
sadly even today. Some people.
I was about to say we fixed it. So
yeah.
And for her latest project, she's decided that she wants to see if she can fool the people she's been selling, straight counterfeits to by creating a new book out of whole cloth, maybe using some old material, but otherwise it's a brand new thing. So she's trying to get word of it out there, and she finds that there is an interested party, except the interested party already knows more about the book than Kate thinks she does, and they want it very badly. And that, of course, is the Queen of No Tomorrows. And as they say, mayhem ensues. So
it's a really intriguing setup.
Yeah.
Very meta.
Yeah, I try not to. I don't know. I was an English major, and I think theory can give you some really interesting tools for looking at books, not necessarily for creating, but maybe it'll kickstart something. I think you can also go too far with theory. So, I kind of like that little taste of it. I don't want to go deep, crazy into deconstruction or, and I'm kind of wary of stories about the power of story, for instance. I tend to look at those with a jaundiced eye. They can be done well, and they can be done very, very badly. Yeah. Or very lazily, I should say. And it's a tricky thing to try and balance. And I wanted to deliver, stuff that horror readers are looking for, but not in quite the same way, not with quite the same flavor. So I still question as to whether or not it's, horror or something else. So, I have to leave that to the readers, I suppose.
Well, I want to let Emma chat with you about the book, but I just want to say briefly, if you're wary of this kind of story, but you still enjoy it, like as you said, it can be done well and it can be done not very well. Sort of in the same vein is The Fifth Heart by Dan Simmons.
Oh, okay. I haven't read Simmons in a long time. I think I started Hyperion a long, long time ago, and I just never got into it.
Yeah, it's nothing like that. It's set in 1893. Holmes is currently on his great hiatus, his 3-year absence after Reichenbach falls, during which time the people of London believe him to be deceased. Holmes has faked his own death. This is what got me to buy the book, this sentence.
Right.
Holmes has faked his own death because through his powers of observation, I don't know what that word is, the great detective has come to the conclusion that he is a fictional character.
Now, that can be done. That can be done really, really well, or it can be, it can be a Star Trek Next Generation episode.
Nah, he did it well, and it's on Kindle Unlimited too, by the way.
Okay, I think I don't know if I have Kindle Unlimited because I have an Amazon Prime account, or if I have to buy into that separately. Either way, I'm happy to buy separate. Oh, is it? Oh, and I have to buy it. Oh, but there's used copies in paperback. I have to say, I hate to be one of those guys that's, I only like to read paper, but with as much time as I spend on a computer, I like to read paper when I can.
No, I get it.
Just to give myself a break.
Yeah, I get it. So, Emma, take it away. Hey, Tom.
Hey. Hi, Tom.
Tom wrote a book that we're going to be talking about in a few minutes. So,
okay.
So I think my main, what I want to talk, there's two things that I want to talk about mainly. One of them is that in this novel, and also in the novel after that, which is great as well, which I think I'd like to talk about that as well. But they're both set in this like 80s Los Angeles, California, and it's very much a sense of a place. The place looms large in all of this story. Like you really get this sense of the different areas that you're moving around, and just a real, like the feeling of the city is like of places like almost like a living entity around you.
That was definitely that was definitely one of my aims. I
love that.
And one of the things I hate is, when people, I can't really consider myself from Los Angeles. I grew up in Los Angeles. I grew up in Orange County, about an hour away. And I lived in Los Angeles for about a year while I was doing animation. And I visited constantly, but I'm not really a native. But I wanted to make it not feel like Los Angeles is just this monolith, just like it's like just this sprawling concrete and it's all one place and it's just the same. It's not. It's absolutely not. So I wanted to give some of those different flavors and make the place a real presence in it. That's if you're not, frankly, I think if you're not doing that with your books, you're kind of doing a disservice. Not that the book is about the place in particular. It's just I just want it, the characters are moving through a place and they react to it, and in a way it reacts to them. So
yeah, because I think about the things that impressed me strongly was the sense of the setting. So you move from like nightclub to like mansions to drainage ditches to the wrong side of town and stuff like that. As far as the other thing I was interested in, because I found myself looking this stuff up, you've got a lot of like mentions of like certain types of magic or even witchcraft, and I'm going to mangle this, but is it Milagros? Yes. And I looked those up. How much of like real stuff, but how much of like stuff that exists already did you meld in with the kind of things that happen in the book?
There's probably a fair bit of real stuff. I'm basically a magpie. It's like, oh, I like this little shiny bit, and I like this little shiny bit, and I'm going to take them back to my nest, and I'm going to make something that maybe it's true to it, whatever true to that particular form of magic is or not. So I think there's probably a lot of reality, and I spend a lot of time reading, nonfiction, because I probably read more nonfiction than fiction, honestly, just because I'm always looking for stuff to throw in, and even if it's just a tiny little detail, that tiny little detail, the reader can make something else out of that and make it seem bigger than it actually is. Because I think my writing is pretty spare when you look at it. I don't do page long descriptions, except for maybe when I'll slip into, like setting a scene, but like I don't do very detailed character descriptions or, ritual magic descriptions, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So,
because there's certainly, I think it is horror, and I think I don't want to do spoilers, but I think you're really like pushing into cosmic horror territory by the time you're at the end.
And it was very much, you have to understand that book had kind of a tortured creation. Originally, it was going to be a 4-part serial of no more than 6,000 to 8,000 words, I think. And then it was, okay, well, let's do a novel, but let's make it a really short novel, like 30,000 words. And I brought it to my editor at 40,000. Like, I can't take anything out. So you tell me what you want taken out. And we ended up going, publishing the original about 40,000 words. So and I was definitely trying. It's like, well, okay, this, Broken Eye, they definitely want horror and cosmic horror. So I was definitely kind of pushing those buttons. And I think, cosmic horror, or, kind of the horror of the awesome, perhaps, might, because I don't know that I fit in any of those categories necessarily, but where you're talking about the old form of awesome, where it was, something is beautiful and horrible at the same time, because it's just so much bigger than you expect it to be, or you think you can perceive. So I was definitely leaning on that.
So can you talk a little bit about the other story?
Oh, sure. Dreams Are Made of Us is the story of the band Dreamless, who after, 10 years and various lineups of, playing dingy clubs and taking single van tours around the state, and looks like they've achieved overnight success, but that overnight success comes with a price. And it comes with, you have to perform, this material with this message. And oh, by the way, it's the Queen of No Tomorrows who's behind, who is pushing this, particular arrangement, this creative vision. But it's, she realizes that she needs something to hang it on. So you hang it on music, and that's not something that she does. She has a cat's paw to do that. So, and it's about two lovers at the center of the band who, were, also one wants something different than the other. And, that leads to everything falling apart. And one of them paying a far greater price than they ever imagined.
Yeah.
Is that one set in the 80s as well?
All the Hazeland stuff is set in the same, kind of indeterminate 80s. I'd tell you what year. Go ahead.
When you sent me Queen of No Tomorrows from Broken Eye, I read that a while back.
Yeah.
You sent it, but I haven't read the Hazeland one yet.
Yeah.
The Dreams
I mean, substantially the books are the same. It's I don't think even Emma would notice the differences between the two, but I would. So that's, and when you're self-publishing, you want to put out what you want to put out. So, because that's the only reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but you had, I'm not sure what I can talk about in terms of the story itself. I don't know if that's what you're looking for, or if you, other than
me or Emma.
Emma.
Oh.
So, that was one that kind of had boiled around for a long time under a different setting. So I decided I just brought it into the Hazeland setting, which is not. Oh, okay. Sorry. We're talking about the 80s. Yes, they're all set in the 80s, although I do have a larger plan where stuff happens in a much later time period. So, hopefully,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine. And hopefully I'll get to all those, but we'll see what happens. There's only so much time, literally, in a lifetime.
Yeah. No, I was just going to ask what originally led you to set it in the 80s as opposed to modern day?
That's part of it is there's the whole, cell phones ruin everything. Well, if you're a good writer, cell phones don't ruin everything. And I actually have cell phones and pagers showing up in my books because they were a part of, life back then. They weren't as widespread. They didn't have the same cultural footprint, but they definitely had an impact. As for the setting in the 80s, I think I wanted to reflect a little bit on, because I want to reflect on what it was like as opposed to what people imagine it was like. And I can't do that 100% accurately, obviously, but I can do my recollections of it and how some things have changed and some things absolutely have not and probably never will, because humans are all involved with it. So
there's a big nostalgia.
There is a big nostalgia, and it's funny because when I was writing, I wrote it in 2016, and it didn't come out till 2018. And what happened in 2017? Do you remember? Stranger Things.
Stranger Things, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, oh my God, are you kidding me? And that just, it's like, oh, this is going to come out a year later. It's like, oh, look, a Stranger Things ripoff. How cute! I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah,
and that's the problem with things being produced and then taking a long time to get out. You never know when pop culture is going to catch up. But don't get me talking about Stranger Things. I won't stop.
In a good way or a bad way?
It's fine for 12-year-olds. My daughter loved it, and she was 14, 13 or 14. She loved it, and she got to the second one like, oh, they're just retreading. They're just treading water right now. So
I wanted to like it. I really did want to like it, but I just couldn't.
Lots of people love it. It's not for me, but I'm also in my 50s, so this is not a surprise. I mean, I had Twin Peaks that same year. That's okay. That was something I could really.
Oh.
No.
Yeah, I was about to say something about us old men yelling at clouds, "Get off my lawn," type thing. So yeah. Well, Case Matt does not come back. Queen of No Tomorrows.
There we go.
Oh,
there you are.
Yeah, we locked up. I don't know where in my rant I stopped. So.
I was about to say, I've said this already, but I'll repeat since you're back. I was thinking of you and me as when you talk about Stranger Things, as two old men, that shouting, shaking their fist at a cloud, yelling, "Get off my lawn."
We can be Statler and Waldorf in the Muppet Show.
I love those guys.
Yeah.
Emma, what else do you want to cover?
I mean, the other thing, I'm really just like kind of trying to think about the things that struck me about both stories and about what I really enjoyed about them. I mean, I am particularly interested. Like I've written about LA and Hollywood myself in various stories. And the reason why I stick to a certain time frame is that I was there a lot during a particular couple of years, and I can't speak to what it's like now because I haven't been for years. So I'm kind of stuck in a past version of it because I can't say what it's like now. But the other thing that struck me about the stories is that the characters are very strong. I mean, I think about the central, I had tremendous sympathy for the couple in the second story, and the
Dreams Are Made of Us,
and the troubles that they had and the concerns that they had. And then obviously, I mean, I'm a ex-punk librarian, like of course I'm gonna there's no question that I'm gonna like that character, and I will. I mean, on behalf of like librarians everywhere, or maybe some of them, I don't know. I would say thank you, because we tend to get put in certain boxes. Like we're either like quite mousy, or we've got like sexy librarian, right. or we have like kind of, oh, they're so good, they're magical, they run the world. It's like, no, we're just exhausted and underpaid. So thank you for like, even though she's like making magical books, still a more realistic representation of librarians. So I think my question is, after that little ramble, is how do you come up, because I've been thinking about this myself recently, how do you come up with your characters? do they just turn up and start talking to you? Do you do the whole like very like, what is their motivation? What are their goals? That kind of way? Are they a reflection of you?
I suspect it's probably all three. I honestly don't. I don't have a good enough imagination to not put myself into most of this, at least the very central characters, the ones that you're spending a lot of time in, you get any interiority into. I do some pre-planning, but probably not enough, honestly. I think that I don't know that they would be better, but they might be a little richer. They might have a little more depth. I will, if you give me an opportunity, I'll pick apart my own work anytime. So I better not. I better stop myself. Right. I do what I do, and I think I'm pretty good at what I do. But that is what I'm in that lane. I'm not really getting out of it anytime soon. But I think it's, and I do, and I do some, I'll sit down and write some character sketches, but that doesn't mean I necessarily know how reactions are going to go. Like when I'm writing a story, I have a basic idea of where the plot is, but I have to make sure that plot makes sense to, I can't make a plot happen because the plot is happening. It has to at least feel like the characters are behind the wheel in the plot, or the characters have to make some kind of sense, even if you don't understand it completely, like when it happens. Hopefully by the end of the book, you get to like, okay, now that, now I have a clearer understanding of why things went this way. But it's okay for the reader to be a little confused along the way, just not so confused that they give up, certainly. But I can't, I couldn't sit down and say, well, okay, Kate comes from this and this and this. I mean, her last name is McCready. I got that from McCready and the Thing. I mean, there's your, I don't think I've ever said that anywhere. So there's your big bonus information, Mike.
Yeah, there you go.
The release date of the second book.
Why people listen to the program.
Sometime in March, and secret Easter egg. Kate McCready is related to McCready from the Thing somehow. John Carpenter, please don't sue me.
He does watch the show, so.
Oh, does he? Oh boy.
No, of course not. He doesn't watch the show.
He might. You don't know.
He might. He does.
He might.
In between, in between games of Halo or NBA 2K23 or something like that, and popsicles. Yeah, he might be watching the show.
Well, he's not a patron, I know that, and you two are. So thank you for that.
Okay.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Yes. I just want to say. It's really great to hear from Emma that she enjoyed the book, because I read Dark Blood Comes from the Feet, and it's just like, I wish I could write short stories like this. I can't write short stories. I mean, the third Hazeland book is all short stories, except none of them are less than 7,000 words, I think. They're all little novellas. I can't write a compelling, punchy short story. It just is something that completely escapes me. I've done it twice, and I don't know how I did it. And then I'm just like, okay.
That is a great collection.
It is a great collection. It's you definitely should hunt it down. I believe it's still on. It's on Amazon forever. Is it?
Yeah.
Is it are you publishing it, or is it's a different house?
No, it's Trepidatio. Yeah, Trepidatio.
It's available on Kindle. It's on Kindle as well, yeah.
And it's on Audible, I think, as well. So you can.
Oh, really?
Listen to it. Yeah.
Oh, right.
I always forget that, and I tell people like, "Oh, really?" Yeah, it is. It's on Audible.
Yeah. Well, Emma's heard me say this a couple times, but first of all, that title, how can you pass that up? Dark Blood Comes from the Feet. But yeah, anyone who's listening who hasn't read that yet, you really should pick it up. So thanks for mentioning that.
Thank you, Matt.
You're welcome. Thank you for getting it out there. Is there something else coming soon, or?
I'm as everybody who kind of knows me knows, because I've been talking about this. I'm in the middle. I'm writing a novel. So I've got some poetry coming out. I think soon in the Women in Horror thing. But there's some short stories in the works, and there's a novel in the works as well.
Okay.
It's just
awesome.
Life.
I understand.
Well, it's Dark Blood Comes from the Feet by Emma Gibbon, and it's Queen of No Tomorrow's book one of Hazeland by Matt Maxwell. I just wanted to ask before we close out, what were some of your influences, like growing up? What kind of books did you read? And then also, as a young adult, what did you morph into, or was it the same? Was it horror all the way, or?
It's funny. One of the first grown-up books I remember reading, and I don't remember how I got it because it doesn't seem like a book my mom would have kept around. I might have gotten it from the library. Because I read a bunch of science fiction when I was a kid, the Heinlein, Clark, a lot of the thin, slimmer volumes. And this was the middle 70s, and I was like 8 or 9, and I started into The Exorcist. And I'm sure most of it flew over my head, but it's just like, it just opened completely new worlds for me. Just utterly, because I'd never read anything like that before. And I read Night Shift and Salem's Lot. And Night Shift is one of those things. It's like, I remember it being really great, and I'm kind of afraid to go back to it now because I think some of the ideas are just, oh, little army men, how's that? That's not scary. That's just silly. But yeah, and particularly in junior high, that book went around like wildfire. Everybody was reading that, and that's I can't remember which edition with the cutouts with the eyes, and open it up and it's the hand with the eyes and the bandages, and it's just like that. And it's funny because that actually tracks back to a thing in Queen of No Tomorrows, which I didn't realize the connection until just now. So
that collection, that Stephen King collection, has what I feel is one of the best forewords of a collection ever, because it starts off where he says, let's talk about fear. I just pulled it up. The house is empty as I write this. A cold February rain is falling outside. It's night. Sometimes when the wind blows the way it is, the way it's blowing now, we lose the power, but for now it's on. So let's talk very honestly about fear. Let's talk very rationally about moving over to the rim of madness and perhaps over the edge. And you really get this sense of him. You're right there with him in the 70s on a cold, rainy February night as he's writing this, and got some very good things to say, obviously. And that's one with Jerusalem's Lot and a lot of good stories.
Right.
It holds up for me.
And
I don't like every single story in there, but
that one's specifically Lovecraft, right? Jerusalem's Lot.
I would say specifically Lovecraft inspired.
Yeah, and I think that was probably my kind of opening the door to Lovecraft for me. That and Wayne Barlow's Guide to Aliens, where he had the Elder thing. It's just like, hey, what's this? And that was about the time that Del Rey put out that 4 or 5 softcover collection of Lovecraft, and that was Lovecraft coming back in like 81, 82, something like that. And from there it was either downhill or uphill or however you wanted to decide.
In that one, there's also just kind of cosmic horror stories without the specific Lovecraft.
Okay.
Like I am the Doorway is one of them. So.
Right. And I think that's what the cover came from too. So
yeah, that old cover. Yeah.
The old cover.
Anyway, sorry to digress, but
no, that's fine. And I'll try and be brief. I read a lot of comics. I read a lot of cyberpunk SF, mysteries, including Jim Thompson and particularly Raymond Chandler, who I probably borrow way too much language from, or just the way of playing with language. And when I was late when I finally read Blood Meridian by McCarthy, but that book cracked me on the skull too.
Yeah.
I go back and reread it regularly. It's just astonishing. It's a great novel of American horror, although I think most people would be hard pressed to call it that. Although I think Laird has called it that.
Yeah,
he agreed with me when I pointed out that it was, even though it's not a traditional horror story in any sense, but it is a story of horror.
Yeah,
and horror is history.
For sure. And he's got a couple of new books. He just passed away, but he's got a couple of new books out too. I don't know if you.
I haven't had a chance to read them.
Yeah.
I'm always behind reading, always.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah. But as I said earlier, I probably read more nonfiction than I read fiction now. I will say the last really great book I read was Our Share of Night by Mariana Enriquez.
Yeah.
Right.
That was amazing. It took a little bit to get into, but once I got into it, I couldn't stop. It was like jumping out of an airplane at night and your parachute doesn't open and you just keep falling. It's amazing.
Everyone keeps telling me that I need to read that, and I did indeed purchase it. But as you said, the TBR list is.
Yeah. The other thing I'd recommend is her collection, Things We Lost in the Fire, which is also, it's all short fiction. But yeah, I think all of it's set in Argentina or Argentina and Brazil. It's really great. No, she's a fantastic writer. I was introduced to her work at Worldcon in 2017 when she and a couple other, actually a big delegation from Latin America came up and gave presentations and talked about what was going on down there. And that was a real eye opener. So, you know, anytime you think things are tired, just look somewhere else and somebody is doing something amazing. I mean, there's always great stuff going on. And I hear people saying, oh, this is dead, or this is boring, or this, you're not looking in the right place then. Because somebody's always doing something. I was about to say, it's like, you just need to try a little harder.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Matt. And Emma,
thanks for having me, Mike.
Yeah.
And thanks for Emma coming on.
Yeah, and it's nice to meet you in.
Yeah, well, mostly in person.
Kind of.
More or less.
In little phosphor dots.
So again, the book is Queen of No Tomorrows, Book 1 of Hazeland by Matt Maxwell. It says Matthew Maxwell.
I should say Matt, because
I could be wrong.
I haven't gone by
the old one might have been.
The old one might have been, but I think even then it was.
Of. Yeah, it says Matt Maxwell. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine. I just use Matt for the fiction. Only my mom calls me Matthew, and only when she's mad. So
it sounds like a reason why I get called Michael. Sometimes it's not my mom though; it's my wife. Michael.
Yeah.
Time to listen up. But make sure you get that edition, folks, because it's available on Kindle, and the sales are going to go directly to the writer. So that's great. And then, of course, Dark Blood Comes from the Feet by Emma Gibbon. Yeah. So check that out. And I'm going to talk to this gentleman here. He's Tom Lucas, and he wrote a really cool book. Hey, Tom. Research Randy. The Mystery of Grandma's Half-Eaten Pie of Despair. And this really, one of the reasons why this book appealed to me, you guys can stay or go, it's totally up to you, but just real quickly, is because I read when I was younger, I was a big fan of Brains Benton and the Three Investigators and Hardy Boys and mysteries like that, Encyclopedia Brown, all that stuff. So yeah, this is, I'll read the synopsis, and then we'll talk to you, Tom. Thanks for being here.
Hey, man. Thanks for having me.
Man, anytime you guys need to duck out, it's fine, but I'm always happy to have you here. Okay, so it says, Research Randy reads like YA, and it can be if you want it to be. I love that. It's also a weird mashup of cosmic horror, eldritch terrors, nostalgia trip, and a meta love letter to Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos. So right there, I think all my listeners are especially interested in. The stars of a beloved series of children's books, the clever Research Randy and his supernaturally sensitive sister Charlie solved many cases in the idyllic coastal town of Serenity Bay, to the delight of many readers over the last 30 years. But now suddenly transported to the creepy hamlet of Effing Mouth. I love that thing. They find themselves in a bizarre place where nothing is what it seems. People are strange and secretive, and something awful lurks in the shadows. This might be a mystery they don't want to solve. So, hey, Tom.
Hey.
Thanks for being patient. I should have just told you to come right at 3 anyway.
No, that's cool. I've listened to so many episodes of this that, I didn't know what time I'd be logging in or what it would be like, but it was cool to catch that part of the conversation with Matt for sure.
Oh, great.
And Emma.
So are you a big fan of the books I mentioned? Is that why you wrote this book, with this sort of nostalgic element?
Okay, well, there's a few things. Growing up, I was a voracious reader, and Encyclopedia Brown and those kinds of kid mystery books were definitely a big part of my diet. as well as the choose your own adventures in those early
yeah.
days and things like that. So there's a piece of me that, and by the way, if you go back and read them now, they're really they're not going to play well in the 21st century. There's some stuff in there that I was just aghast. I was like, oh man. But anyway, so those books do hold a special place in my heart. And the general idea that popped in my head is what if I took a character like that and his family and put him into some terrible Lovecraftian situation? What would that look like? I write for fun more than anything else. If I'm not enjoying what I'm putting together, it's a non-starter. And I thought this will be a kick to write. And it came together very easily for me once I sat down and started with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love those choose your own adventures. I haven't read them in a long time, of course, but is that the ones that didn't read too well, or the Encyclopedia Brown?
No, the Encyclopedia Browns. And if this wasn't a matter of public record, I would tell you the scene in particular that I was quite,
well, those were written in the 50s, weren't they? The 50s and 60s?
I think so.
60s to 70. And then they did reprints, and then he did a few books at the end, like closer to the end of the 20th century. But there's definitely some things that would be at least viewed as insensitive now. But still, I love the text that I could interact with from a pretty early age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. You just reminded me, because at the end of each story, the book would ask you, did you spot what Encyclopedia Brown spot? Because all the clues are here. Did you solve it too?
Yeah.
The only
that's
two
what's
I remember
in Research Randy too, by the way. After each chapter, you have to turn to the back.
Yeah, I was going to say, I just got this yesterday. I'm in the mail. I'm really looking forward to reading it. Thanks for sending it.
Sure.
Only two I read them all, but this was 40 years ago at least. The only two I remember is one where this guy wins a contest that they're doing down at the fair or something, eating things that taste terrible or something like that. And it's because he deadens his taste buds with ice, all day long. And then the other one where the Encyclopedia Brown does not solve, but his female friend, I've forgotten her name, solves. She goes,
Sally. I think it's Sally.
Because she says, boys these days don't know their manners. And it was something like, it was something like if you're walking with a girl, down the street, you walk on the street side to protect her from cars and things like that, which I immediately thought, what about all those dark alleys?
You're just offering her up to whatever's lurking there.
Yeah.
Using her as a human shield from the nameless horrors in the dumpster.
Yeah, exactly. So
I remember one where it was so blatantly obvious. There was a guy who his alibi was, I'd been driving around town all day, and and as Encyclopedia Brown was walking up, he'd seen a kid playing on the hood of the car, and if you'd been driving around all day, your car would be burning hot, and the kid in his bare feet, and some of those like, you're not even really trying, are you? And I was 10.
Right. No, I would really get frustrated watching Scooby-Doo back in the day too. Because the reveal was always a cheat. It was a clue that was not presented to me, so I couldn't have solved it with the gang. So I'd get really frustrated. And then the choose your own adventure angle, the other interactive part, my favorite one, which I have a copy of, is UFO 5440, because the only way to get a good ending is to cheat and to just find the page with the good ending. And I just love that so much that they would
is that the one where it says you will get to this place not by any choice that you make, but I remember that.
Yeah, exactly.
Did Ligotti write this book? What?
I'll tell you, right?
I want to get back to your book, but before I do, I gotta ask Did you read any Brains Benton or Three Investigators since we're on this topic?
I might have read those. The ones that have been really haunting me, and maybe you'll remember, is the kid was an inventor. Maybe these are the ones. The kid
Danny
was an
Dunn.
inventor. He had a buddy named Schumacher, like Willie Schumacher or something like that. And he would invent things, and that's
Oh,
how they solved.
Alan Fernald.
That's it. Yeah.
Alan
Yeah.
Fernald. Yeah.
I always look it up and then immediately forget the results of my learning from that.
Oh man, that brings me back. Wow.
But yeah, I would say predominantly Encyclopedia Brown and Choose Your Own Adventure, with little side trips to other things.
It looks like they're on Amazon too. I've got the Three Investigators book, not several of them. There were a lot, and I've got all the Brains Benton because there's only 6.
Now, he was the Mad Scientist Club or the Mad Genius Club. Was that
Mad Scientist Club? Yeah.
Mad Science. Okay.
I
Yeah.
haven't thought of that one in a while. I did read it, but it wasn't, surprisingly, for those who know me, it wasn't the draw that Alvin Fernald was, or I mean, I was like, man, I want to be Alvin Fernald. You know, he's such a cool kid.
Yeah, he had a machine that made his own bed for him, and the big boxing.
He had a professor
glove on
that
the
lived in the
scissor.
house that was even smarter than he was. So, anyway, so yeah, all of that is to say, this is all background and nostalgic memories for you when you're writing research, Randy. So
yeah, I mean, trying to find the voice of the book is written very much, you know, in that same kind of voice that you would find in those books. And I guess that's where in the disclaimer, it's like, it could be YA, you know, if you were a kid like me and you read Cujo when you were 11, like Cujo was YA for me, like,
being in YA
like,
stories. Yeah.
You know? So, I mean, your mileage will vary. Yesterday there was a piece on the Fandom Post and the guy was like, I can't really recommend this as a kid's book, but kids would really like it. And it's got lots of really fun illustrations in there, but it is quite dark. The book gets very dark and weird toward the end.
Well, I mean, a quick aside, when I was a kid, it's like Something Wicked This Way Comes. That's for kids. You know, that was teen reading. And that's a dark book.
Yeah.
It's a really dark book.
I mean, put the lights on if you're a kid and read that.
Yeah, but I think it's even darker reading it as an adult when you can sympathize with the grown-up characters. Oh, okay, this is what getting old is like. Okay. Yeah.
And there's I know we're getting away from your book, but there's just such a richness in the writing of Something Wicked This Way Comes.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading this, Tom. As I said, I got it in the mail yesterday. Might have been the day before, but it came pretty quickly. I'm looking at the chapters now. It looks like after each chapter, there's how did Randy solve the case? Turn to page 137 to find out. This is just great.
And it starts out a little off kilter, but it feels like one of those books. But it very quickly starts spiraling into something else, because the frame of the frame story is that this is the last book in a series of books that's run for like 30 years. And the author came across some kind of cosmic horror that corrupted him and is forcing him to write this last book, which dooms all his characters. And the reader is complicit in their doom by participating through reading the text. So there's a lot
Ligotti
of...
wrote this.
Yeah, so Ligotti wrote this.
If
Ligotti's like a YA book. Let me think.
If that mistake was made, I would probably just, pack up and be like, well, there's nothing better than that. But anyway.
Well, there's nothing wrong with being compared to Ligotti, I'll tell you that.
Oh, my goodness. When I was in college, my girlfriend worked at Gale Research, and he was like a couple doors down from her, but we didn't know who he was at the time, but that's when he was doing this like mid-90s. He was doing some good stuff. But so the frame story is this book is actually from a series that doesn't exist. So that's like the first the first thing that's kind of wrong with it. And thank you all for laughing at effing Muth, because that's like I'm particularly proud of that joke. And getting to make it over and over in the book was really fun as well.
You're effing well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm imagining a Venn diagram right now, and in one circle is cosmic horror fans, readers, etc. And then the other circle is what we've been talking about, all this nostalgia from when we were kids, like Encyclopedia Brown and so on. And so both parties would love this book, but then the Venn diagram in the middle is, if you're both like I am, you're really going to love this book, so it's really up your street. So
thanks for that. That's kind of a perfect way to sort of, capture what I was trying to do.
Yeah. Will there be? Go ahead.
Sutter Kane for kids.
Yes. Have you read Sutter Kane?
Have you read Research, Randy?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Randy and Charlie are the Carter kids, so it's Randy Carter. That's That's probably my favorite. Yeah, my favorite illustration in the book, Mike, is the kids running out of the school library with the school's copy of Alize. So
Alize for kids, yeah.
Yes, being chased by a Shoggoth. So I love that illustration quite a bit. My old friend of mine, Mark Beery, who's an artist in New York, did all the interior illustrations. There's 38 of them, and he also painted the cover. Oh. So, yeah, some really fun stuff in there.
I think if you see the cover, you might be tempted to think, okay, this is a neat idea, but it really is only for kids. And just the little bit I've had to look at the book, that's definitely not the case. Adults can really enjoy this. So
I think they're the primary audience. Like you set up the Venn diagram, that's really the audience. And sort of the trick of it, which I imagine I'll have to sort of work through for a while, is in order for the book to take the form it took, it has to look like the kind of book I'm playing off of, which makes buyer beware at times, I guess. I don't know. It'll be a little tricky, to see what happens there. But I had sent it out for some early reviews, and some people were like, "This isn't a kid's book at all. I'm aghast. This is not Goosebumps." And so
you're like, good. That's what I was going for. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great review.
Yeah.
But that's a part of it. When you're packaging it in a certain way, that's a thing that's going to happen. So
are the illustrations in the Kindle version?
Yes.
Good.
However, the one downside to the Kindle version is that instead of turning to the back of the book for each sort of mystery solved part, it's directly after the chapter, because flipping through a Kindle is not an enjoyable process.
I think that was a smart move.
Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that, though.
No, I mean, yeah, I think it's the same effect.
It is, because they're just gonna, if you have got the print, you're gonna turn to that page, read it, and then you're gonna go back. Then you're gonna immediately go to the next chapter, just like Encyclopedia Brown.
So. Yeah, I think the only thing that's lost is that when I would flip back in those books, you stumble upon the other illustrations, and they're kind of like a preview or an enticement to what might be coming later in the book. Yeah. So you might even stop along the way. So it doesn't have that moment. It doesn't matter really.
Well, it comes out on October the 30th, which is, we're recording this on the 28th. On Saturday, October 28th, and I don't think I'm going to have it out until Monday the 30th, so that's okay.
Oh yeah.
I am going to post about it before then, but I would say the Kindle is only $3.95, so you can't go wrong. Buy the Kindle if you're not sure. But this is, what little I've read, I've really enjoyed, and I really like the idea of it a lot. So. It's available in paperback and Kindle. Kindle's only $3.95, so that's a deal. Anything else that maybe you want to talk about that I haven't thought to ask, Tom?
Gosh, I don't know. I guess my previous books.
Yeah,
I
please
don't
do.
know, right? Just since there is, I my first book I put out in 2012, and that's Leather to the Corinthians, and that's a high concept satire. It's doesn't really fall into a genre because it's just kind of all over the place. I predicted a lot of things. I think there's like a little sci-fi in there that I think lines up well. And then in 2014, Eraserhead Press, which you may know,
Hmm.
out of Portland, put out a novella of mine called Pax Titanus, which was about an intergalactic gladiator tournament. And it's it's been described as Hitchhiker's Guide with a lot of potty humor. So, I really went for it with it's one person said this is really quite juvenile, and I was like, yes, because that was like supposed to be the whole point of it
D-
was it's a romp. It's just a romp.
I was going to
And
say, don't you love they think they're delivering a zinger, but it's like, no, that's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
right? I'll
Yeah.
tell you, it's even better than a good review where they like,
Yeah.
point out a couple things. Sometimes like it's got nothing but penis jokes in it. I'm there, and
Yeah.
or what have you. Um, so yeah,
Pax
and then I
Titanus
have
is available on Kindle too for $3.99.
yeah, the
Yeah.
print edition hasn't been around for a little bit. Eraserhead probably has about 500 books in their catalog, and there was some kind of disruption in the force with Ingram and Amazon regarding that, and they're slowly putting out certain books back in print. So for now, it's just Kindle.
Mhm.
The acknowledgments are interesting. You were at BizarroCon in 2015. You said I first pitched the idea to Ross E. Lockhart's pitch workshop at
Yeah,
BizarroCon. I, Ross is a nice guy. It was well
he
received.
is.
Yeah, it was well received, but did not result in hooking a deal. So it sat in a mental drawer. But eventually, a handshake deal at AWP 2018. I don't know what that is. Saved it from the abyss. That did not work out, but I found a happy home at Beating Windward. So it's great to see Randy lose his mind for our shared entertainment. I feel the same way,
That's great. Yeah, the year after Pax Titanus came out, I went back to BizarroCon, and Ross Lockhart, who's indeed a fine guy, ran a pitch workshop, and I pitched it, and Ross asked everyone what they thought, if they would read the book or buy it, and everyone raised their hands. I got really excited because Ross was the person I wanted to impress the most in the room, and he went, I'd never publish it. It sounds too much like a kid's book. And I was like
Ouch.
crushed. I was so crushed
Oh
inside. I
man.
still think Ross is awesome, but that's what happens when you pitch stuff, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So that's how
It
it landed.
does.
And then AWP is the Associated Writers and Writing Programs. It's kind of an MFA conference that happens every year. And Clash Books, who you may have heard of, was interested in it, but in the end, they decided that it doesn't really kind of fit in their catalog well, which I totally understood. And then I went back to school and got my doctorate, so it really sat for a while, and now we're here.
What's your
So,
doctorate in?
Education.
Okay.
So I've been in education for about 18 years now.
What do
So
you teach? What do you teach?
well, I taught in a creative writing. It was a bachelor's of art program, and I taught world building for about 10 years. And we were talking about Stranger Things earlier, and I'm 54 as well, and I see there's a lot of things in Stranger Things that don't really land with me either. They're very engineered, I guess,
Yeah.
story beats and things like that. You
Mhm.
can kind of tell. But working with 18, 19, 20-year-old writers who were very much media rich in their
Mhm.
environment, their enthusiasm for some material that I would never pick up on my own probably was really very really, it kept me young, and it kept me open to considering some things that I would definitely dismiss in my now that I'm in my 50s. So now I'm kind of the equivalent of a dean and I manage 2 graduate studies program. One is in instructional design and the other is in media design.
That's
But,
great.
yeah, education can be a good place to be if you find a good slot to fall into, and I have. So,
and that is an if. I know that from my wife being a teacher. She was at a not good place for a while, and now last 3 years she's somewhere where she's very, very happy. So I'm glad
That's
you found
great.
your space too, is what I'm trying to say.
I'll tell you, I don't know what else I would have done. All I know how to do is tell weird stories and explain things to people. That's pretty much the skill set.
Well, that's one more thing that I'm apparently good at. So I can't explain anything to anybody.
All right, good. I was going to ask you
Nope.
guys about the meaning of life, but you're just going to tell me 42. So,
well, it is the correct answer.
Yeah, we just don't know what the question is. All right, so folks, please be sure to pick up Research Randy and the Mystery of Grandma's Half-Eaten Pie of Despair. And as I said, it's available in Kindle for $3.95, and it's available in paperback. And the same for Emma and Matt. Queen of No Tomorrows, book 1 of Hazeland, is available on Kindle and print. And Emma's Dark Blood Comes from the Feet, same thing. So I'll be really happy if I hear from folks and say that if you haven't read the 2 books, I'm sure you haven't read Research Randy yet, but if you watch this or listen to this show and you get all 3 of these books, then that'll be great. Let me know. So
I would maybe put Randy between the 2 as a palate cleanser, because both Emma and Matt, your works based on what I caught in the conversation sound pretty heavy, and this one is just more of if you know your Lovecraft and you read those books when you were a kid, the detective books, you're going to have a really good time seeing how all those ingredients sort of get reconfigured.
Yeah.
And it's short, it's smaller, it's 172 pages with illustrations, so rip through it.
Yeah, I did immediately think of Encyclopedia Brown when I saw that cover. So
hey, can I ask real quick, Tom?
Yeah.
Is this latest book Bizarro or not? Because Bizarro, it's like I ask 15 people what Bizarro is and I get 25 answers.
Okay.
So
yeah, that sounds like Bizarro, right?
It sounds like weird fiction too.
No, it's not.
Well,
it's
not.
And I don't even think Pax Titanus was. It was just it was maybe adjacent.
Mm-hmm.
And my first book was just kind of weird enough that some Bizarro types were like, oh, maybe you should hang out with us. But I don't know if that was like really Bizarro either. And how I would describe Bizarro is you take a completely absurd concept, like a talking egg that's a detective, right?
Right.
And you write it with such seriousness and conviction, and you commit to it to the very end. To me, that's Bizarro.
Okay. So it's, I mean, in some ways it's kind of like camp. It's like this absolutely non-serious thing. We're just going to go with it. And, we're just going to roll with it.
I've not heard
that. That's how I see it. Some other people, they do like more horrific kind of Bizarro where there's a lot of body horror and like this kind of awful stuff. But to me, it's just, take an absurd concept or premise and write it very seriously. Me, I'm constantly like, do you see what I'm doing here?
Yeah.
This is crazy, right? Like that immediately discounts me from being a real Bizarro writer. I
really like that definition. I've not heard anything like that before. I guess in my mind, I did associate quite a bit with body horror. So
yeah, a lot of it's
right or wrong. I don't know.
It seems a lot of it's kind of fixated on extremity, extremity for extremity's sake. And what's the difference between that and splatterpunk, for instance? It's, is it a periodizing term or is it a content term?
I am definitely not the person to ask on that.
I don't know. If you have shelves and you're labeling very carefully, splatterpunk and Bizarro probably, or you're going to have a few books where you're not sure where you're going to put it, and then Slipstream versus Bizarro versus New Weird, like it gets to the point where there was a time where it was just fantasy.
Mm-hmm. And that's
whatever it was, you know,
and
it was just fantasy.
and I'm going to say this, and it's not meant to be insulting, but in a lot of ways, these are almost socializing terms or like cohort terms rather than actually dealing with the content. It's these people in this time period who know each other and are kind of loosely agglomerated, you know, kind of an Algonquin round table of weird.
I
That could
don't
be.
think that's out of step. I mean, what's Weird Tales?
Yeah.
You
Right.
know, well,
A bunch of people
they were all
happen to be there at
buds.
the same place at the same time. You know,
Good
getting
point.
published by oh gosh, I can't remember who was the editor then, but yeah.
Well, thanks to all three of you very much for
Thank you
doing
for
this on a
having us.
Saturday. Yeah.
Glad to
Yeah.
be here.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. So this will probably go out on Monday. So,
Okay.
you know, and anyone who listens to it on Monday or later, yeah, thanks for coming out on a Saturday, guys.
Buy all our books.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Buy all of
Thank
them.
you, Tom.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time.